guys, and welcome to another segment of Ghostteq. And as we all know, for those of you that are not familiar with the show, Ghostteq has been put together by Ghostteq, which is basically an organization that has to deal with all of the paranormal realm, ghosts in general, and the gear that's used in the field, and everything else that's involved as far as equipment, all the lingo that goes along with it, things like EVPs and AVPs and so forth, the gear. But anyway, since I've got this on hand, I wanted to show, like I'm going to do in further segments, is one piece of equipment that we have in the gear, and give it a short description of what it is and what it's used for. As for most of you, I'm pretty sure that you're well aware of what it's basically a headlamp, okay? And it just has your red light and your white light that some of us use during the case until to identify, if we're setting up or if we're using for infrared lighting, we'll use the red lighting so it doesn't interfere with the vision of the cameras, because a lot of people, when they're doing casework, if they're doing audio work, they don't want these lamps necessarily to be blinding in their light in their eyes while they're setting things up, which for the most part, a lot of it's done beforehand when you're doing your setup during your casework. But anyway, one of the main reasons why I wanted to start this segment was I know that I talked about briefly on a prior segment on an issue of the name of a team and what it means to you and what it represents for your team and what it represents for others and how they view you. The reason why I'm bringing this up was because I know a lot of the paranormal teams, ever since the social networks that came out and boomed, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so forth, YouTube, which is a major, big help. Vimeo also allows for video networking for people to go live, like Facebook, which I haven't done myself, but probably will in future events. But for the most part, we all know that social networking is a big portion of what a lot of paranormal groups use to get their word out, to get their collected data out, to get their what they feel about the field. Their sharing network, which a lot of us do, to share with other teams, other organizations, even with the public itself, and as to let them know what we feel about the field in general. Unfortunately, there's a lot of groups out there that still are not taking the field seriously, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I know there's some that insist on, titling themselves in a sense that it's really a detriment to the field. Okay, if you're going to, like I can't reiterate this enough, and that is to tell everybody out there, if you're creating a group, to create it with the sense of respect for the field, those working in the field, and those that you're investigating on, and that's the spirits in general, right? The spirits, ghosts, entities, those are the things of that nature. Because we all know that at one point in time, we're all going to be passing on, whether it's by natural causes or, of course, things do happen, and there's that demise that you're thinking, whether we grow old. Of course, myself, I know there's that point in my life that I know eventually I'm not going to live probably another 40, 50 more years, which, if I do, that'd be a good thing, because I'll be able to present more videos as I go along. Of course, we all don't know as far as YouTube. YouTube is already boomed out there as far as doing, to the point where they're showing excellent shows, and they're boosting up their, boosting up their ability to share more, offering more features for those that are presenting videos and doing excellent film work. Okay, but back to the subject at hand, the paranormal, and I wanted to talk about that because, like I was stating before in a previous clip, was that we all know that when you're creating a team and you're thinking offhand that you want to do something to help those on the other side. You want to do something to help those that are looking for the assistance, to help them find out why they're experiencing the things that they are, whether it's a residence or a place of business. We all have that question in the back of our head. Is this something that's really paranormal, or is this just something that might be figured out for what it really is? And 9 times out of 10, it's probably something more logical than you may think, because we all do a lot of debunking. And debunking is a term that most of the paranormal investigators use to find out firsthand, whether it's through a walkthrough with your client on a prior, to setting up for a casework, which you do initially when you interview with the client. Say like somebody calls you up and says that they're experiencing something. Well, you go to their home or the residence or the place of business, and you fill out a few forms, which I know some of you probably not aware of that. And that's another part of the field work itself. And there's forms involved. Some of you probably feeling like, okay, well, we didn't have that in mind. We just want to go out there and take pictures, or we just want to do video and so forth, because it's all in entertainment. Well, basically, no, it's not. Paranormal investigation is not a hobby, for one, and it's not an entertainment status. I know that there's plenty of TV shows, reality shows that do so much. We know a few of them out there. Since very beginning, when, say for instance, one show in particular, Ghost Hunters. Remember when that show started? I can't recall the exact year, but it was maybe a year prior to that, that me and one of my best friends who had passed had decided to create a team. And at the time, we were experiencing things, and we decided to put a team together, and we call it Spring Lake, North Carolina Ghost Hunters. Now, don't get me wrong, the word itself, Ghost Hunters, is a very critical thing, because we all know what ghosts are, and we all know what hunters are. Hunters, in essence, what comes to mind when someone says to you, I'm a hunter? Well, maybe perhaps that you got a rifle and you're out there to shoot buck, deer, elk, bison, buffalo, elephant, whatever it is out there in the country, Sahara, Wyoming mountains, whatever, bear, or whatever. That's what the word hunter. Okay, now we all know that there's certain definitions that also fit that criteria, and they say, sure, paranormal investigators fits, ghost hunters fits into that criteria. Ghost hunter, hunting for information. Whether that's, to me personally, that's a very derogatory way of looking at things, because you're not hunting for ghosts. You might not like what I'm saying about it, but it's true. You're not. You're investigating. You're researching. You're analyzing. All of the things that you're doing for spirits or ghosts, you're not hunting them, okay? That word hunt, I know there's teams, I myself, when we first started in this whole paranormal field, of course, it was back in 1995, and prior to that, even when I was a little kid, I was interested in ghosts then, because I had been dealing with ghosts since I was 7 years old. But for the most part, anyway, back in 95, when we decided to put together Spring Lake, North Carolina Ghost Hunters, and went on with that team for a couple of years, 4 to be exact, so that's more than a couple. But anyway, we had gone through several cases throughout Spring Lake, throughout Fayetteville, Harnett County, Cumberland County, Irwin, Vander. We've done some cases out there. And as we had gone along, I got to thinking about it, really seriously thinking about where we were going with this name as a team. And the point of that really got to me, because I started to think about the word itself. And I know my friend, he meant well, because he came up with the name originally. And I thought long and hard about it. And I thought, we really need to take a better, closer look at what we are doing as a whole. Yes, we're out there, we're still helping people. We're still venturing out to get answers and debunking, like I was talking about, debunking, which is basically, I kind of got sidetracked, I'm sorry about that, but debunking. When you're going through, say for instance, a walkthrough with the client, and the client tells you that they're hearing certain things, and they're listening to this, and they're hearing, and they're smelling, and well, there's categories that you think on when you're first analyzing and debunking. A few components on hand that you want to think of, and that's electrical. Electrical, which can cause many things, can go haphazardly. It can cause, electrical has a lot of connections, whether it's EMF, electrical magnetic fields, frequencies, and those can cause headaches, neurological problems in the mind, and the reason being is because and when it comes to EMFs, I know there's some people that have talked about equipment that are using to more or less analyze and collect data from EMF readings like K2 meters and so forth. Excuse me. But EMFs, electromagnetic fields, and things that are, there's a constant reading on those, and everything impulses that have to do with everyday electronic uses throughout your household. And that's everything from clock radios, microwaves, refrigerators, washing machines, all the things that use electricity all generate an EMF reading. The higher the reading, the more critically dangerous it is for you, because those EMFs, once you're exposed to those EMFs, let's say for an example, a tanning bed, and I believe I had brought this up in one previous segment of a tanning bed, where a woman had called us, and we had gone to investigate the residence, and she had, it was like, I think it was roughly 10 years ago, and we had gone to her household, and this tanning bed was possibly going on 20 years or more. It was an older unit, and it had, a lot of the units nowadays, they required certain EMF ratings before they can be sold. But this particular unit tanning bed was in her bedroom. Now, could you imagine an EMF pulse rating where the ratings are so high in the bedroom itself? I mean, I know she did it basically out of convenience, because, you know, she can get in the tanning bed, get out of the tanning bed, clean up, and go to bed, all in the same room, because you got your bedroom, you got your shower, and you got your tanning bed, all within, you know, a few steps. Excuse me. All within a few steps walking distance. But in any event, that was still a critical thing that we were trying to stress to her, and that, you know, she really needed to take more precaution as to her health issues and what could be going on. There's other things that can be causing things, like I was talking about electrical, and that's plumbing. Some people talk about they hearing seeping or dripping. Of course, they're not really, sometimes not connecting the two, is thinking if it's dripping. Because when something's dripping, you know, there's different lines. There's water lines where it's either rushing or it's leaking, or there's a pressure buildup with water supply. And that pressure building up can cause certain noises, like maybe two joining lines that might be together, or it might be that line is adjacent to another line, whether it's electrical or something else, or cable or something else, where it's causing that line to rub, whatever, and it's creating noise. So that could be an issue in itself. The other thing that could be going on is the foundation. And the foundation is whether there's house settling. We all know that when there's house settling, things could be making noise roughly, if it's an older home. Even with newer homes nowadays, things do creak. The lines where the flooring settles, stairwells, especially if you got a two-story home. Not that it doesn't happen in one-story homes, because they do as well. Mobile homes too, because excuse me, I got something going on. It's a cough. But in any event, even mobile homes, because they're basically on wheels, because they're on a frame component with wheels that are jacked up and whatever. Sometimes with their modular homes, and also, they also creak and here to have the same problems. But if you think about those particular things that I mentioned, those help you in debunking and finding out whether there's things that are logically sensible as to what could be going on within your home prior to calling out a paranormal team. Not that you shouldn't, because maybe you're not thinking about it, and a paranormal team that comes out, they're likely to point those things out for you and tell you more or less what could be the cause of the way things are happening. There could be numerous things. Also, it could be chemical. A certain person that's maybe taking certain medications could be causing the problem. There's illnesses out there, mental illnesses, Parkinson's disease, which I have heard recently in a few commercial segments on TV that they're talking about Parkinson's disease, something that Michael J. Fox has. And they're saying Parkinson's as a reason for hearing things and seeing things. I can't substantiate that one way or the other, because I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose that particular issue. But if it is something to that effect, that's something that you need to look into with your physician or doctor. Because if it does create these illusions, that's something that needs to be taken into account for. There's also other things that can be causing it, whether it's medications that cause illnesses, and that I'm sure when they're prescribed they tell you that those certain things can cause hallucinations, therefore you shouldn't be driving, or shouldn't be baking a cake, baking a cake while you're on something. But in any event, also there's things like around the house that could be causing those things that go on, like components, chemical compounds, paints, lacquers, finishes, things of that nature. Also, like I said from a previous segment, we had gone to a residence several years back. And this lady, of course, she was living in a two-story home. We had gone to visit her, did a walkthrough, and sure enough, she showed me she has a basement. She has a two-story home. She has a basement, and then in the basement, she has 20-some odd cans of assorted paints, thinners, lacquers, and so forth. Some of which were not completely sealed. Now, to take into that account that those particular items, if they're seeping and they're leaking and the vapors are going out, and if you happen to look, those things also can be detrimental to your health, not to mention cause hallucinations and cause you to think a certain thing and see things that you normally wouldn't see. And in any event, she got rid of the paint cans, and she closed up some, took them out to a shed, which she should have originally put them in the first place. But those paint cans that were the ones that were leaking happened to be just below her bedroom, which was right above on the second floor. And that's where they were. So that, as chemicals, some forms or another, tend to float, and the vapors seep up, they go in through the woods, to the wood floorings, and up through into the bedrooms and areas. Therefore, you inhale without your knowledge, start hallucinating, start seeing things that aren't there. Now, I'm not saying that everything that goes on in the home is a logical meaning for what happens paranormally. Because 9 times out of 10, you can logically figure it out. But there is that small percentage of things, that very small percentage, that could be something. And that's the one thing that most teams tend to not take advantage of. The fact that I'm not saying all, okay, just let me make that clear right now. I'm not saying all, but there's a good percentage out there that don't take into effect that a lot of that can be logically explained. And that is, it's even prior to the walkthrough, it's say like, even after that fact, after you'd gone through debunking, and some of the teams out there, they don't even necessarily do that. They walk through, of course, they talk to the client, and the client does a rough through of what they're experiencing, and they tell you, I'm seeing this, I'm hearing that, and my kids are freaking out, and the dog is climbing the walls, and the cat ran away, and so where's this ghost coming from? So they're saying. And so some of these ghost hunters or paranormal investigators, because I can't say one's higher than the other, because they both, some of them in some senses or another, they both do good jobs. But as with everything in the world, there are good ones and there are bad ones. Some of them are not bad, they're just not proficient in their field. And they're not dedicating the time to research the things that really need to be taken seriously. And I don't mean just taking a shirt and throwing it on and say, I'm a paranormal investigator, I'm a ghost hunter, I want to grab me a camera from Walmart and an audio recorder and go to a house and have at it. No, it's not that simple. There are a lot of procedures and a lot of things that need to be followed through beforehand. You need to diligently research the information, research the product that you're using, the tools that you're using, the gear that you're using. I know nine of all these equipment that are out there that just about every one of us uses in the field is technically wasn't made to do paranormal investigating. It wasn't made that way. It was just made to do, like the camera. The camera was intended to just take pictures. But you know what? Paranormal investigators use them. They say the digital cameras, are kind of iffy, because they can be kind of deceiving. So a lot of people use the regular DSLRs or whatever. They don't use the snapshot ones. I mean, there's some that do snapshots, whatever. The ones that like the throwaway cameras and things of that nature. And then there's the audio recorders. People use audio recorders. I know we did when we first started out at Spring Lake, North Carolina Ghost Hunters. You know what I used? I used an RCA cassette recorder. I don't have it anymore, otherwise I would show you what it looked like, but it was basically, I'm sure some of you know what they do look like, because technology has advanced so fast within the past decade that it's astounding of all the gear that is coming out on the market. Now, the cassette recorder, I know some of us, viewers years old as I am, when we first made the team back then, back in the 90s, I don't know if there was any teams out there. I mean, I'm sure there were some teams out there. But using, it was just, it was so new. It's still new because we're all still learning. None of us are professionals. You need to get that through your head. There's a lot of us out there, some that are saying they're A1, top of the line investigator. There's nothing they don't know. Well, you know what? They're a crock of shit, because nobody knows everything. Nobody. There's no pros. You can't call a person a professional, because in this field, there are none. Of course, there's some people out there that are more knowledgeable than others. Some know more because they pretty much dabbled in the field for a long time, and they've been researching more longer. But that doesn't make them professional, because when it comes to spirits and ghosts, nobody knows everything. We don't. And nobody's going to know everything until it's your time to get on that side. When you cross that side. Now when it comes to that side, I'm sure there's people out there that believe otherwise, because they talk about, when you're dead, you're dead. You're 6 feet under, and that's it. You're just right along there with the dirt. And the worms have at it, But for most of us, religiously or not, we all believe, most of us believe that there's two components to a being: the physical form and the spiritual form. And that we're just basically a spirit with a two-legged ark, this physical form. And once the physical form can no longer exist, because physical means, or health reasons, or accident, or whatever it may be, the physical part, and that's it. But what I was saying, all in all, when it comes to paranormal investigating, which I would pretty much prefer myself to be called an investigator, because that's what I do. I investigate, and that's what many of us others do, is investigate. We don't hunt. Of course, I don't want to say a lot of things bad against ghost hunters, because there are some ghost hunters that actually do go through the regular common procedures that should be followed in the field. And there's things that do and are expected of those in the field. In other words, like when you go to an investigation, when you go to meet the client and you do the walkthrough with the client, there's paperwork involved in that, like I said earlier. There's an interview form that you ask the client to fill out, so they can identify what they've experienced, where they've experienced, and how long they've experienced it, a little bit of information about themselves, things of that nature. And then there's other forms, and like in another segment later on, I'll probably be more in depth about what all goes involved in as far as form work for paranormal investigators, because some of us out there, like I said, think that the whole idea of going behind a case is just going in there with a camera and an audio recorder and just filming, But there's a whole lot involved. And see, the investigating part is one thing, but then the component behind it after that, which is analyzing, which can be very tedious, You have to look through all that footage, all that audio, listen to every segment of it over and over, until you hear something. A lot of times when somebody goes through their data and they analyze it, say for audio, for example, and they think that they hear something, the best part is to take it to one of the members and say, hey, I think I might have something here. Could you just tell me and take a look and see what you think you hear? Don't go about it and tell that person, say, I heard somebody say, get out. Listen to this. And hear, get out. Well, you know what happens with that? You pretty much infected that person's mind, because you already put that mental issue in their head, and they're going to listen to something right off the bat on the audio, and of course they're going to think that they hear Get Out as well. So think about it for the most part before you go telling somebody, a co-member or somebody else, about what you hear or what you see. You just ask them, take a look at it, and let me know what you think. Okay? But I'm going to leave it at that. And so for the most part, I just want to thank everybody for watching the show. And if you would, click on the like button, subscribe to my videos, and we'll be hearing more and more what goes on behind paranormal investigating, ghost hunting, as well. And talking about more equipment and with more segments that go along. There's so much more that you can't get on in just 30 minutes because there's so much material out there to talk about. But I'm also going to be creating a website. I've got that in plan that I'm working on. And I'm also going to be doing, matter of fact, I'm in the market for looking for a building to do a show, because I want to actually find a place that I can actually use to create a studio to do some ongoing shows where I can start having guest appearances from other paranormal teams, maybe some residents that just want to give in their 2 cents, so to speak, of what they think about ghosts and what they don't think about ghosts, because there's a lot of disbelievers out there as well that don't think ghosts exist. But for the most part, thank you everybody for watching the show, and we'll see you next time on Ghostteq. Good night.